Beautiful. On a morning when we're talking about the power of prayer, I think that the heart that you bring to what you share with us, that's the message. You guys can go. No. Out of the mouths of babes, right? Oh. So I started to say that with the earlier service, somebody asked me if I was nervous, and I said no, but I'm excited to come and be here and share with everybody. And I just want to share with you, too, that one of the reasons I felt excited was because we had a little core leadership team meeting yesterday with about 15 of us. And it was just such an uplifting experience. I have to tell you that sharing with the people in this church over the past 25 or 30 years, or however long I've been doing it, and some of us that have this history together, and we get together and we're talking about the direction of this center and where we are and what we're doing now and where we're going, and it just really is fantastic to be able to share with a group of people, just like our youth speaker shared with us this morning. So I just wanted to share that with you because it was on my heart. It gave me a special feeling about being here this morning with everybody. I think we're headed in a magnificent direction and just more wonderful things to come here at the center. So one of the things that I have been kind of contemplating over the time that I've been thinking about this topic about the power of prayer is how many different perspectives that you will get an opportunity to hear in this church. It's one of our strengths. So we're talking about this topic about prayer, and you're going to hear it from Sue and Mary and myself and Sharon and Kay and whoever, and you hear different perspectives. And sometimes you hear things maybe that seem a little bit contradictory, but that's okay, because really at the heart of truth is paradox. And we can say two different things, and they can seem the opposite, but there be truth in both of those things. And so having different perspectives is just really so valuable here, and you'll hear some of that, I think, today. And also that there are as many different ways to pray as there are human beings on the planet. I absolutely believe that. I believe that prayer is a very personal thing to each one of us, and that the good news about that is that if you bring your love and you bring your sincerity to your prayer, you cannot do it wrong. There isn't any way to do it wrong. You know, we teach a certain kind of way of prayer, but the bottom line is you bring yourself, and that's what matters. That's what makes a difference. So I talked in the first service also about the importance of the first two steps of treatment. We teach affirmative prayer here, and we teach 5 steps of treatment typically. But some folks, including myself, believe that really those first 2 steps are primary. If we get that God is all that is, and we are one with that, there really isn't anything else that we need if we can focus on those 2 things. And I spoke about the practical use of meditation techniques as a way of drawing our energy inward in order to have the realization, to get that realization of our oneness with Spirit. Within us is the power to fully open up to this moment, to give up our resistance to what is, and to be real, to really be very present. And in this way, we can really lessen our suffering a great deal, lessening our resistance to what is. I was in the kitchen recently with one of the wonderful members of my congregational support team. We were preparing goodies, food for after the service a few weeks back, and we were catching up and sharing. And I said, well, you know, how's it going? And she said, you know, I'm in a really very pleasant part of my life right now. This particular time in my life is really very pleasant. You know, my relationship is going along really well, and we're appreciating each other, and money's good and kind of flowing, and we're taking some trips, doing some traveling. And I'm really in a very pleasant, wonderful time of my life right now. And then she added, And she says, and I know it will change. And this is a very positive woman who was pretty much raised in this teaching and who really has a good grasp on her spiritual life. But so she has a handle on things, and she has there's so much insight and so much wisdom into what she was saying, because as we all know, life changes. It's the nature of it. It's always changing and shifting. And so it was such a wonderful way for somebody to kind of bring that out for me. I really appreciated it. So one of the things that Eric Butterworth says, and that he wrote the book, The Universe is Calling, that we've been using as a touchstone for our talks over a few months. And he said that meditation is the centerpiece of prayer. And I believe that, and I like that. It's one of the parts of his book that I really like a lot. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. One of the definitions of meditation in my class on Thursday evenings, which is really actually now as I'm going to be teaching a class on meditation on Tuesday nights that you'll have an opportunity to take. It'll be, I think, pretty interesting techniques, a different approach than I've done before. Great curriculum. But on Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8, we gather together, whoever chooses, to meditate together. And it's really a great opportunity, and I invite you to do that. But one of the handouts that I give at the introduction gives some little definitions about meditation. And one that I really like is, meditation is the wisdom of insecurity, the ability to flow with the changes, to see everything as a process of change, to relax with uncertainty, to let go, to stay centered in the midst of change. And there have been studies that have been done about this concept of uncertainty, and they found that people dislike that and are more afraid of that, than we are actually of physical pain, uncertainty about what's going to happen. That meditation is the wisdom of insecurity, because that is the nature of reality that we live in. We don't know from day to day what is going to happen with our lives. So in my role as a chaplain, a minister, which is mainly what I do around here, and meditation, I have a big interest in how we view prayer. Because when people are sick and people are suffering, prayer is a biggie. It's a biggie. You know, we want to know, it's important how we pray. When we're suffering or when our loved ones are, we want to know, how can our prayer be powerful? So Dr. Larry Dossey is a medical practitioner, and he wrote a book called Healing Words, and it's a book that I think took in a class or used in a class that I taught that I really appreciated. And he became interested as a medical practitioner in the power of prayer to help people with their healing process. And so he started looking up research on it and studying it. And he found a plethora of evidence, huge amount of evidence, that in fact prayer does assist people with their healing process. And there were a lot of different kinds of studies that were done. What they showed is that prayer took many different forms across the board. Results happened when people prayed for specific outcomes, and results happened when people prayed for nothing specific at all. Some studies showed that the prayer, "Thy will be done," was quantitatively more effective than when people prayed for something specific. Key to the belief, or key to the prayer, and what I'm going to be talking about today, is our belief in a basic goodness, I think, of the universe. That this is a friendly universe. And probably, I'm guessing, most all of you who are here today would buy into that and believe that. So my belief is that whatever this creative power is that put us all here and is expressing itself in this way really wants to express in a beautiful, loving, high consciousness way and have a great life by means of us. And so that's kind of basic to what I'm talking about today. So when I say a prayer, thy will be done, that's where I'm coming from. And that's important. So in lots of these experiments and these studies, they found that an attitude of prayerfulness, a sense of holiness, feelings of empathy and compassion seem to have a really wonderful effect on people's healing. Good results were effected with headaches and heart attacks and anxiety and depression and a whole host of things, including they did studies on the growth rates of tumors, the size of tumors, leukemia white cells, the firing capacity, the firing rate of pacemaker cells, things like that. So studies on all these different kinds of things. So Dr. Dawsey eventually decided that he was going to pray for his patients, and that not to pray for them was the equivalent of depriving them of a medical treatment or a medical procedure that might help them, that it was that serious in his practice of medicine. So he began a practice of going into his office early in the morning, of ceremoniously lighting a candle, of meditating, and of praying for his patients, invoking the absolute, invoking God, asking that thy will be done for each of the patients I will see today in my practice. He never prayed for specific outcomes, but for the best possible outcome to prevail. And he had been given over the years, as people knew he had this practice. He told a funny story that he one time with his candles, he set the fire alarm off in the building, and they all came in and saw what he was doing and were kind of like, I'm wondering what this Western medicine physician was doing. So through the years, he'd been given some rattles and some gourds and some different kinds of things, and he used those, he shook those, he made noise with those, he shook them, and he invoked the power of the absolute in doing that. And the point he makes about this is that he never in a million years imagined that he would be doing this as a physician. He said, when I was a resident, walking around with my white coat, never imagined I would be doing this. But he found it so deeply, deeply satisfying for him. And he did it all throughout his career until the end of his career. And he never did any scientific or studies, controlled studies or anything on it, or kept statistics. But he absolutely was convinced that he was a much better doctor because of doing that practice. And what it did for him was it connected him with his patients. And I think this word connection is absolutely key to the power of prayer. In my experience, it is this aspect of connection with the absolute and connection with one another that gives the power to our prayer. Many of you have had the experience of calling the center and asking to be put on the practitioner's prayer list. And how does that make you feel? And what is your experience? Probably 30 of you could stand up in this room and talk about what that did for you. Because you knew that you had a connection with other individuals energetically that were thinking of you and wanting the best for you, wanting your healing. So we know that prayer doesn't work in 100% of cases. It doesn't. 100% success rate for prayer would create no less than probably global havoc. I mean, think about it. You know, two sides of a war, you know, jihad, holy war, we're both praying to win. We're, you know, two sides of a football team. Almost nobody would die. You know, probably millennia ago, the earth would have been rendered uninhabitable, right? Because nobody would be dying. So why doesn't, you know, our prayer work in 100% of the cases? What is this telling us? It's telling us that we live in a much bigger picture. We live in a global picture. We're a thread in a tapestry of life, and the tapestry is made up of all these threads. And so there's a much bigger picture. We don't exist alone on this planet. We're part of a web of being. And the greater good of the planet probably would be incompatible with the survival of every human being who's sick. We had a speaker here that did a workshop in this last year, so I think Linda, somebody was her name or whatever, and I'll never forget, she said what she got so interested in was, you know, why treatment didn't always work for people. You know, why doesn't it always work? And people asking her that, you know. And she just made that simple point, that it's a much bigger picture than our conscious, finite mind can grasp. We can definitely create in our life, absolutely. But we have to remember all of this together. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of evidence, plenty of evidence that plenty of the great spiritual teachers and mystics of our time died in pain and suffering. Saint Bernadette, who was a great saint, mystic credited with healings. Saint Bernadette, Krishnamurti, who inspired millions of people. Some of you, I'm sure, have read him. Those people died of pancreatic cancer. Suzuki Roshi, who brought Zen Buddhism to the world, to the West. And Ramana Maharshi, most beloved saint of India, also died of cancer. Viktor Frankl, who was a prisoner during the Holocaust, and probably a lot of you have read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote so powerfully about the power of the human spirit. And he wrote this: "What is to give light must endure burning." The fact of saints suffering and sinners not is just one expression of the mystery in life, and of the importance of standing in that mystery, being willing to stand in that mystery. Other evidences of the importance of tolerating mystery lie in the paradoxical power of praying for nothing instead of praying for something specific, in the power of the unconscious rather than the conscious to effect our healing, bring about healing. The effects of prayer, though they can be demonstrated so magnificently in the lab, can be so agonizingly unpredictable outside of it. So what is it about mystery? Well, mystery irritates us. Have you noticed that? It irritates us. We want answers. We want resolutions. We want black and white. But I would put it to you that if we are to really understand the role of prayer in healing, we must grow more tolerant of the role of mystery and ambiguity in our life, to be in that mystery. The poets speak, I think, so much more wonderfully sometimes, that touch our understanding beyond the realm of science. And Mary Oliver wrote a book of poetry called Thirst. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a fantastic poet that so gets nature and the beauty of that. And she wrote this book, Thirst, after her partner. She was a lesbian woman who had a partner for 40 years in a magnificent relationship. And after that partner died, she wrote this book. And for the first time kind of dealt with her grappling with faith and her love of the physical, her love of nature, and faith in the unseen. And she speaks to us so powerfully of our humanity, and her authenticity is so profound and so powerful. And so I want to read to you this little it's kind of the epilogue, actually, to the book. This touched my heart so deeply. So she's writing this. Another morning, and I wake with thirst for the goodness I do not have. I walk out to the pond, and all the way, God has given us such beautiful lessons. Oh, Lord, I was never a quick scholar, but sulked and hunched over my books past the hour and the bell. Grant me, in your mercy, a little more time. Love for the earth and love for you are having such a long conversation in my heart. Who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I've given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing, except the prayers which, with this thirst, I am slowly learning. So she allows her experience of grief, her experience of sorrow, to be her path to her spiritual progress. There's so much poetry in here. I was going to stand up here and just read poems all morning, but so how we pray is as varied as we are. In her book, Meditation for the Love of It, which I've been using in my meditation class through the summer on Thursday nights, Sally Kempton, she urges our authenticity in invoking the grace of the divine, whether that be directly to your spiritual teacher, if it be Jesus or Buddha, or whether it be another great teacher, a chosen being. And she tells us this. She says, if you are full of longing, fill the invocation with your longing. If you feel dry and uninterested, confess your dryness and ask for help. If your mind is disturbed by anger, fear, or worry, offer up the mind to be transformed. Your invocation is your dialogue with the power of grace, and the more personal, direct, and heartfelt it is, the more effective it will be. And to remember, in alignment with all the teachings of this center, the being that you are invoking is not someone outside of yourself, but it's a part of the inner fabric of your very being. It's within you. It's not coming from without. It's manifesting from within you. So that is what you are bringing when you bring yourself. When you bring your heart, as this beautiful young woman did this morning from our youth group. She's worried. We don't need to tell her not to be worried, not to have fear, but she's also striving at the same time. She's bringing that to the table, and she's, in her beautiful way, she's accepting and she's struggling and she's grappling with all of that. But she's bringing her sincerity and her love. And that prayer will affect her friend and will affect her in a fabulous, healing way. In the Indian yogic tradition, it is said that the goddess has two faces. Her Mayic face, from the word Maya, that creates identification with our small, separate selves, and her liberating face, which dissolves duality, dissolves the whole idea of duality and just gets that oneness. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who was a great lover of the Divine Mother, used to pray the way a child would pray and speak to its mother. And he would beg, please show me your liberating face rather than the face of your Maya, of your delusion. He would beg her. So this brings me to my bathroom. So I have some props. And my bathroom, because it's the place that I put little tidbits of truth around on my mirror, and between my mirror and the wall, I stick little things in, and so I can get inspired when I'm we all spend a little time in front of the mirror, right? I mean, you're all gonna go into the bathroom sometime, so it's a great place to hang your truth around the walls. So, so one of the things that I have that is one of the most powerful things, and it's this little 4-phrase, and it says, relaxing with what is, non-resistance, standing in your truth and surrendering, in absolute faith and trust. And that is so simple, and yet it is so big. It is so huge if we could embody that. Standing in our truth and surrendering in absolute faith and trust. Another thing that I have, because I believe so much in resting and being present in the ordinary moments. Content with an ordinary life, you can show all people the way back to their own true nature. And that was written by Lao Tzu, another great sage, great teacher from the East. Time stands still best in moments that look suspiciously like ordinary life. With cute little beings here. All right. And I have this picture on the front of the Sun magazine. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Sun, but it's a great publication, literary publication. This picture was taken by a Peace Corps volunteer in 1995 in the Ukraine. And this is her landlord. And she got him as he was coming up out of his root cellar with his pig, who had had a fever and who was now well. And he's so happy. Can you see the joy, the contentment, the peace in this man's face? And that just kind of puts things in perspective for me, you know? Sometimes if I'm having a hard time, it's like, wow, you know, that man is so happy that that pig, you know, is well. All right. And then lastly, I have a treatment from my granddaughter, who's now 20, who wanted to be here this morning, but she's serving lunch with the asphalt cowboys in the park. When she was about, I don't know, 5 or 6, and she says, to Mom, she calls me Mom, thank you for bringing us golfing. She was waiting for me to take her to miniature golf, and I was being distracted, as I sometimes get, and kind of not getting on with it. So while she's waiting for me, she's going, thank you for bringing us golfing. I had a great time. I wrote this before we went because I knew we were going to have a great time. So I love you, from Ashley. Oh, goodness. So treatment in all forms from the very young. So I believe that this power of prayer, again, it comes from the awareness that we have of ordinary moments. And so I think, well, I have one more quote, sorry. But I think these things are so powerful. This is from my main spiritual teacher. She talks about self, capital S, self-recognition. When self-recognition takes place through divine grace, you become a liberated being. Then when a flower blossoms, you see God smiling at you. And when the petals fall away, you feel that God is absorbing you into himself. When life dances before you, you accept it as a gift from God. And when life is difficult for you, you also accept it as a gift from God. So if you will just join with me now. I am so grateful and I give thanks that each one of us has the power within us to make the choice, to pay attention to what we are aware of, that we have the choice to shine the light of consciousness wherever we choose, and that we have teachers and teachings and tools right here, right now, that we can utilize to experience the magnificence of the very present moment, to live now rather than in the past or in the future, to accept the greatness of our life in this very moment. And so I give thanks that we set our intention this morning to pay attention, to take the time, to sit quietly, to have our prayer be that power which is beneath the words, to bring our hearts, however they are, in whatever way we are inclined to pray, to honor our own individuality and personality in that, but to come with that knowing that we are in a friendly universe with a God of grace who chooses to live a magnificent life by means of us and who supports us no matter what the conditions of our life are in any moment. I give thanks that we choose to spend some time in the quiet to hear the voice of Spirit, to allow that silence to come forward, to speak to us. I release this prayer knowing that this is the truth, that this is one aspect of looking at it that can help us, and knowing that we get exactly what we need this day. I release this prayer, Father, Mother, God, knowing it is so, and so it is.